Good morning. So today I can speak to you about using humans in shark risk management. I'm actually not going to speak very much about what Shark Spotters does, our organization, and it's more about what we can do as individuals to manage shark risk. So just quickly, Shark Spotters, as I explained before, is a safety organization. It started in 2004 in response to a number of shark bites in Cape Town. There was a community response, and it's developed over the years to incorporate not just the safety aspect, but also research, education, and conservation, which all feed in to minimize our interactions with sharks. So it's really important that, if you think about our connection with the ocean, you guys are an island surrounded by ocean, and the oceans are really important to people in so many ways. And we use the oceans for food, and I had some delicious fish since I've been there. Jobs, recreation, there's the recreational water user economy is quite huge in South Africa. And I know that it used to be here, and I think that's a hope to get it back again. And for travel, to travel for ourselves and for other things, to travel around the world, shipping around the world. Medicine, the ocean reduces the oxygen a degree, climate regulation, and it also has a really cultural significance for a lot of people. So there's 2 billion people worldwide who live on the coast. And with that many people living on the coast and the ocean being so important for us, it's really important that we realize our part that we have to be at taking care of. So we're not the only people who have to look after the oceans. The sharks are also really key to healthy ocean ecosystems. And they play a number of different roles in terms of predation, in terms of changing the distribution of prey species. And it's really important that our oceans have healthy shark populations. Often we think that, there used to be the saying, as Matt said, that a dead shark is a good, a living shark is a good shark is a dead shark. And we now know that healthy oceans need sharks. They need them for to be more productive and thriving, and they need them to be resilient to climate change and to maintain ecosystem balance. So if we know that we need the oceans, and we know that sharks are needed in the ocean, then we can kind of move forward with the way that we look at the relationship that we have between. So when I see pictures like this, I get a bit like, oh, I think dealing with shark bites for since 2008, I've been involved with Shark Spotters. But actually, the pictures, and there's more and more of them coming out at the moment all the time. There's in California particularly, there's a lot of those pictures, and the Clattenburg Bay in South Africa. And there's actually, we're encountering sharks a lot more than we realize. And it's very normal for us to be in the ocean. If you're in the ocean, and what they say, if the water's salty, there's possibly a shark around. And it really is a case of, we are in this area that they use, we're using it as well. We have this spatial overlap. And it's just important to realize that we're sharing space with them a lot. And actually the conflict that happens is very, very rare. And it's actually most of the time the sharks are swimming past. And if you like things like this, you should, there's the Malibu Oxys from, who's on Instagram or something like that, but has the most amazing footage of sharks close to water users in California. And there's a number of things now where you can see just how often we are in sharing the same space as sharks. But obviously when we're sharing space, then we also have shark bites, and that's kind of why we're here. And why it's amazing that we can get all the people dealing with shark bites around the world together in one space. And you'll see that in 2023, I don't know if Gavin has published the 2024 results yet.
Yeah.
Have you?
Very top, yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Fine, as in my year, was it? But the 2023, there was 69 shark attacks globally and remote shark bite incidents globally, and only 10 deaths. And if you think of that compared to any other cause of death for anything, it's incredibly low. And, you can use the coconut saying, and yeah, you're probably will like to be caught by a shark chasing you than a coconut chasing you. But there's many different ways. Bee stings, malaria. Malaria kills thousands through mosquitoes. But I think one of the most significant things when you're comparing, it doesn't really help to look at coconuts and snakes and mosquitoes. It's not relative. If you think of drowning and how many people drown on our beaches, and I love just sweet that the Union has a big problem with high drowning rates, which surprised me being an island. But in South Africa, we have a big problem, I think, across the world. And drowning, so this is from Los Angeles, California. Drowning is the leading cause of injury-related death for children aged between 1 and 4. Like, that's crazy. So it's kind of a case of trying to put things in perspective, is that shark bites are incredibly elusive, but they are very rare, and we are around sharks a lot more than we think. And there's also other things, people die on the way to the beach. People die from jellyfish stings. They die from sunstroke. And so it's just trying to manage that kind of emotive issue around sharks. That is something which we as individuals need to try and do. So much of a paradox is the right word for this, but one of the most interesting things that I've experienced over the last sort of 18 years of doing shark safety is that shark bites are such low frequency deaths. If you think in the whole world, 69 people were bitten by sharks last year. But their impacts are so hugely far reaching. And I've seen it myself in Cape Town. I've seen it in other communities. We can see here the impact that shark bites have had on Reunion. And it's strange because if you think about it, it's one person that is bitten. And they may very tragically pass away, and then their family and friends, and it has an impact on them. But it can also have a massive economic impact. It can have an impact on the social fabric communities. And it can also have environmental impacts where the lethal control programs and other systems are put in place to reduce shark bias. So it's a very interesting and very difficult thing to get your head around, because it's, if you think of all the risks out there, it's very low risk compared to many things, but it just has such these far-reaching impacts. And that's why we need to manage them, because in terms of managing threats, the risk is very low. But we're not managing risk, we're managing the fallout of where something does. We're managing the people after the shark bite acts. So I'm sure your newspapers have looked very similar to this over the years. They've been touched with more recently. But when a shark bite incident occurs, it is like the media love it. It's they lap it up and they will harp on it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it will be, depending on if there's any other newsworthy things happening at the time. Sometimes you get lucky and you have a big flood, or was it? And the which they had it, New South Wales, so kind of distracts people, but otherwise it can just be the front of the newspaper. And this has so many impact. You think like, oh, it's just, over dramatic reporting and it doesn't have such a big impact. It's not something that we, but it just fuels the fear. It fuels the sort of the distrust of, the fear, the distrust of the sharks and of the misunderstanding. And so what's so important is when dealing with shark bite management to actually try and build relationships with journalists. And it's very different now, because there used to be like each newspaper had an environmental journalist. Now you have people who can literally TikTok things straight away, and it's kind of a very different sphere to get used to. But doing that and trying to make people understand that the impact that this can have on, people from overseas see this, they might cancel their holiday bookings. They might, they don't want to go and see, they don't want to do this thing. And those reductions in, in the number of people visiting the beaches doesn't just affect the school of the beach with the, surfboard rentals. It affects the coffee shop. It affects the parking fees. It affects the hotels that people come and stay at. So it really has these like wide-ranging cascading. And then also the impacts that media has, it's not just on the general like public psyche, they're also really significantly impacts the people involved in the shark bites. And so in 2018, there was a study done in Australia by the University of Sydney, and it found that 2/3 of people who had been involved in a shark bite, whether they're the victim, and first responders or the family, suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, which you would expect. But then it also found that the PTSD was 12 times more common in people who had negative media experiences following a shark bite than those that didn't. So trying to think of ones that, often if it's a young child, it will become a much more sort of newsworthy event, or the one in Australia where it was filmed, and those things. And that's, 12 times more likely to get PTSD, and that's first responders and people. And I know, and I think almost all of us here have been first responders at shark bites, and it's a indescribable thing as the people who manage shark bites safety, then the people involved, from the communities and the families. And so really trying to sort of manage our expectations around that and how we can actually reduce this fear is really important. So whose responsibility is it to keep you safe from sharks? Is it the government, or is it the individual? And this is, I've asked people this, and you get very different questions, very different answers depending on where you are. But the answer is actually both. So there's things that the government can do and should do in certain instances, but also to barrier cruelty, we take personal responsibility as well. So in Reunion, your government, I think, has been incredibly proactive. They have put in an amazing amount of safety mitigation measures to help people be able to go back and use the beaches, much more proactive than most other places. A lot of us have had it. It's taken a long time for plans to be implemented, and so it's really amazing. Australia, they had in New South Wales, you had sharps, not actually, John lines that we've spoken today, but I don't need to go over all the sharp identification things that governments do. In Cape Town, they have the Shark Spotters program, which is also, it's a proactive safety program to prevent shark bites over the flight system. But then safety is actually everyone's responsibility. So these systems that the government spends a lot of money on, and we saw from Jeremy's table how much money is spent on all of these things. There's a lot of money is spent on these systems. But they're only on a few beaches. There are, if you think, so Reunion had 210 kilometers of coastline. If you think how much of that is covered by a shark safety program, Sabah has 3,000 kilometers, Australia has 25,000 kilometers, and very small parts of that actually have government implemented safety plans in place. And that's because we can't keep everybody safe everywhere, all over the place. The cost is far too innovative. And in certain, well, I think everywhere, but in certain places more than others, in South Africa, we have real competing social and economic needs for government funding. We have people who don't have running water. We have people who don't have proper houses, don't get a good education. And those, when you look at how much you're spending on shark bites, which are such infrequent events, although the impacts are great, compared to what you're spending on people who don't have a toilet, don't have running water, that has to be comparable and that has to be fair. So how can you be a responsible ocean user? Essentially, it's all about making informed decisions. So you have to make the decision yourself. You have to weigh up the risks and the benefits of going into the water, and then you make the decision. And this can be on whether it's at a beach that has a government-mandated safety program in place, or some beach in the middle of nowhere that has nothing. And it's all about being educated and understanding, being able to make informed decisions. So this is just an example of shark safety tips that we had in the music Cape Town, and everywhere, and I'll show you now, everywhere has the same thing. And essentially is we as individual water users need to know what we can do to prevent our chances of encountering a shark. And so often I use the example that when people want to go for a cert, they'll look at the swell, they'll look at the wave direction, they'll look at the wind, they'll be like, oh, these things. They don't look at shark activity. They don't look and go, and it should be something that's just as common to, it's a feature of safety that should be just as common. And so we have, and essentially around the world, we all have that say kind of messages all in different forms. But the one thing I wanted to point out is this information is not, it's not kind of like plucked out of nowhere. And this is where the importance of these research programs comes into shark mitigation, is that all of these tips come from data collected from scientists. And in South Africa, it's shark spotters. So say and shower wasting water if possible. So 85% of our shark sightings in Cape Town are behind the backline, behind the breaking waves. So we had the data to support that. These are not so random things that have somebody's gone like, oh, that'd be fun to tell people not to do that. There is reason and rationale behind them, and that's why they should be followed. And I must say, for the last few bikes in the Western Cape, every single one of them has had somebody disregard those safety tips, particularly the ones around don't swim in the schools of fish and feeding dolphins and things. People go, oh no, there was loads of fish, but like the waves were really nice, and it's like, if you follow those safety tips, you really improve your chances of not getting vertebrates. So essentially, those safety tips are kind of like the same worldwide. And so this South Africa, New South Wales, Cape Cod, Queensland, I think that is, Plett, they essentially, everybody's saying the same thing, and the whole idea is being shark smart. So knowing the ways that you can reduce your risk when entering the water, and then making those informed decisions. If you get to a beach and there's a shark sighting recently, and there's fish in the water, you can say, okay, well, I don't accept that risk. I'm not going to swim here today. Or, and it's your choice, you can say, well, it's maybe really high risk, but that wave is just so good, I'm going to go out and surf. And we've done social studies looking at different user groups' perceptions of shark risk. And essentially, the surfers had to say it doesn't matter, like, as long as there's another shark seen right then, they'll go out no matter what the conditions are, or no matter what how recently a shark was seen, if it's good surf conditions. And then you've got, mothers and families who are like, if there's been a shark seen in the last week, I'm not going to go to the vacation. So it's looking at all of those different things, but at least they're making informed decisions based on information that's been provided to the 5-year authorities. So one of the biggest parts of this is education, and I think that everyone, that all of us from around the world have education programs. This is part of our Sharks Wars education in Cape Town. We like to do the education on the beach. We do pop-up events on the beach because that's the target audience, so we do have schools programs and we go and do those, but really the people you want to speak to about shark safety and reducing their risk are the people that are on the beach using the water that day. So that's ours, and then you have kind of combined with from California, they've done some awesome comic books. New South Wales, they've got a very cool trail of Chambray Jelisov. We've done some coloring pages, so there's a whole load of ways to share that information, and that it can be shared. And I know if you're busy with the school programmers, yes, good. Put the school program educator here as well. And then one of also the big things is to be able to respond if there is a shark bite. So most shark bites are not fatal if the first aid is received fast enough. So having shark attack kits on the beaches, having people trained in a response for major medical injuries like that, it's very different, like a cut is very different from an amputated leg. And so having people trained in that, then I know that Australia, all the lifeguards I think are trained. In South Africa, we have these shark attack kits all along the coastline, and you can just call up the number and you can say it's kit ALB, and they will give you the code to open it, and they'll send emergency response as well. So if you have that stuff, then you can, you can still save lives. And then there's also information that can be found. You can sign up to the Dorsal app, which is what they use in Australia. And here as well, in New South Wales, I've got a Shark Smart app. And the most important thing is to be informed, make sure you have the information, adapt your behavior. So you may have the information, but are you going to do anything with it? Are you going to say, okay, well, there's been a lot of shark sightings in St. Lou this week. I'm actually going to go somewhere further up the coast because it seems like there's a lot of activity there. And be responsible. You are responsible for your own safety. We cannot guarantee, the government cannot guarantee your safety at all times. It's the same as when you go walk down the street. It's the same as when you get on an airplane. You're responsible for your safety as well, and that's the important message to come across with Shark Safe. So just a last parting message, and I think this is quite relevant, is that so Chris Neff, who's a social scientist, shark person, and he says, simply put, the beach is being domesticated as a tourist location for bathers in ways that do not conform to the reality of what the ocean is for wild. And I think it's very important that we realize that it is a wild space. It's the same as if we go into a national park somewhere. It's a wild space with animals, with predators, with prey, and we're swimming into that space. And so, we need to be responsible and aware of that.